On a humid summer night in Austin, Texas, in the year 2020, a 22-year-old woman walked out of her apartment and vanished. No signs of struggle, no ransom note, no body, no witnesses who could explain what happened. One moment, she was alive, texting her brother, promising she'd call him back in 10 minutes. And then, nothing. Police searched for months. Her family begged for answers. Her mother stopped sleeping. Her father stopped speaking. And her younger brother, Eli, never stopped blaming himself. For 6 long years, the case went cold. The city moved on. The internet forgot. The missing posters faded. But Eli didn't. Because buried in his memory was something he had never told anyone. A secret so disturbing that when he finally revealed it 6 years later, it changed everything. What he said didn't just reopen the case, it exposed a lie, a betrayal, and a truth that had been hiding inside the family all along. Tonight, we uncover the full story of Lena Hart, the young woman who disappeared in Austin in 2020, and the shocking confession her brother made 6 years later that left even investigators speechless. Because sometimes, the scariest thing about a disappearance isn't the moment someone vanishes. It's the reason they were never meant to be found. Before we begin, if you love gripping mystery stories, shocking twists, and emotional real lifestyle telling stories, make sure to like this video, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, do you think her brother was protecting her or hiding something? Now let's begin.
In the spring of 2020, Austin was a city living under tension. The pandemic had changed everything. The streets were quieter. Businesses were uncertain. People stayed indoors more than ever. But inside a modest apartment complex near South Lamar Boulevard, 22-year-old Lena Hart was trying to hold her life together. Lena was the kind of person people remembered instantly. She had warm brown eyes, a laugh that filled a room, and a strange ability to make people feel seen. Friends described her as the one who checked on everyone else even when she was falling apart. She worked part-time at a small coffee shop before shutdowns hit, and afterward she picked up freelance graphic design jobs online. She wasn't rich, she wasn't famous, but she was ambitious. She wanted to build a creative agency one day. She kept sketchbooks full of logo ideas, campaign concepts, and random poetry written in the margins. She lived alone, but she wasn't really alone. Her younger brother, Eli Hart, was just 19 at the time and attended community college nearby. The two were inseparable. Their parents had divorced years earlier, and the split had hit the family hard. Lena had become more than a sister to Eli. She became a protector, a second parent, a safe place. If Eli had a bad day, he called Lena. If he needed food, Lena showed up. If he felt like he was failing at life, Lena sat beside him and reminded him he wasn't. That's why what happened on July 14th, 2020 made absolutely no sense. Because Lena didn't just disappear from the world, she disappeared from the one person she would never willingly leave behind. It was a Tuesday. Austin was sticky with late summer heat, the kind that clings to skin even after sunset. At around 8:17 p.m., Lena texted Eli, "You still coming by tomorrow? I found those old photos from the lake trip." Eli replied almost immediately.
Lol, yes. Save the embarrassing ones. They exchanged a few more messages. Nothing unusual. Nothing dramatic. At 9:03 p.m., Lena sent what would later become the most replayed detail in the entire case. A short voice note. She sounded distracted, a little tense, but trying not to show it. "Hey, I'm stepping out for a sec. There's this weird car outside again. I just want to check if it's the same one. I'll call you in 10. That was it. 10 seconds of audio. 10 words that haunted her family for years. Eli replied, "What? Don't go alone. Call me now." No response. He waited. 5 minutes. 10 minutes. 20. Then he called. No answer. Again. No answer. Again. Straight to voicemail. At first, he thought maybe her phone died. Maybe she forgot. Maybe she ran into someone outside. But as the minutes turned into an hour, his gut began to twist. By 10:32 p.m., Eli drove to Lena's apartment. Her front door was unlocked. The lights were on. Inside, everything looked almost normal. Her purse was on the kitchen counter. Her laptop was open on the couch. A half-finished glass of iced tea sat on the table. Her sandals were gone. Her phone was not inside. And the air felt wrong. Not because anything was broken. Not because there was blood. But because there was a strange stillness, like someone had left in the middle of a thought. Eli called police. At first, they treated it cautiously. An adult woman. No clear sign of forced entry. Possibly left voluntarily. But Eli insisted something was wrong. And he was right. Because in the parking lot, a neighbor had seen Lena. She had walked outside.
The weird car became the first major lead. 2 residents in the apartment complex remembered seeing a dark-colored sedan parked near the back fence several nights in a row. One neighbor said it looked like an older gray Toyota Camry. Another insisted it was black. One said there was a man sitting inside. Another said they only saw headlights. No plate number, no security camera clear enough to identify it. This was 2020, and frustratingly, the camera facing the rear parking area had been offline for nearly 3 weeks due to a maintenance issue. Investigators canvassed the area. They pulled nearby traffic footage. They searched Lena's phone records. They interviewed coworkers, ex-boyfriends, neighbors, delivery drivers. Nothing solid. Then, another detail surfaced. Lena had told 2 friends in the week before she disappeared that she felt like someone was watching her. At first, they thought she was being dramatic. Then they remembered something else. A week earlier, during a FaceTime call, Lena had walked to her window and suddenly gone silent. When her friend asked what was wrong, Lena whispered, "That same car is here again." Police asked the obvious questions. Was she being stalked? Did she have an abusive ex? Did she owe money? Was she involved in anything risky? Every answer came back frustratingly ordinary. No known enemies, no criminal history, no evidence of drug activity, no recent fights, no breakup drama, no major debt. Just a young woman living a simple life who somehow seemed to know that something bad was coming.
As days turned into weeks, pressure began tearing the Hart family apart. Lena's mother, Miriam, became obsessed with media outreach. She posted constantly. She contacted bloggers, podcasters, local news outlets, volunteer groups. She refused to believe Lena was dead. Her father, David Hart, reacted differently. He withdrew. He stopped attending searches after the first month. He avoided interviews. When asked how he was holding up, he'd say the same sentence, "I just want my daughter home." Then he'd leave. Eli noticed it first. Something about his father's grief felt rehearsed, too flat, too controlled. At the time, he hated himself for even thinking it. Who suspects their own father when their sister is missing? But there were little things. David never asked to hear the voice note, never asked to see the last texts, never joined Eli in revisiting the apartment. And once, about 3 weeks after Lena vanished, Eli overheard his father in the garage, speaking on the phone in a low voice. He caught only one sentence, a sentence he would bury for 6 years. "I told you she wasn't supposed to leave that night." At the time, Eli froze. He stood outside the half-open garage door, heart pounding. When David stepped out, he acted normal, too normal. Eli wanted to ask, wanted to scream, but he said nothing. Because grief can make you doubt your own ears. And because if he was wrong, he'd be accusing a broken father of something monstrous. So he buried it, and that decision would haunt him for years.
By early 2021, public attention was fading. Search teams had covered wooded areas, drainage zones, abandoned lots, nearby creeks, and isolated roads. Cadaver dogs found nothing. Volunteer divers found nothing. Cell phone pings placed Lena's phone near her apartment for a short period after she stepped out. Then the signal disappeared. Not moved across the city, not traced along highways, just gone. As if the phone had been shut off or destroyed almost immediately. Theories multiplied online. Some said she ran away, some believed human trafficking, some blamed a secret boyfriend, some said she was killed by a stalker. Others suggested suicide, though no evidence supported it. The cruelest part, no closure, no proof of life, no proof of death, just endless maybe. Meanwhile, Eli's life unraveled. He dropped classes, he developed insomnia, he replayed the voice note every night. He began keeping a notebook. Inside it, he wrote every memory, every suspicion, every inconsistency. He noted how his father had become more controlling after the disappearance, how he discouraged digging up pain, how he snapped whenever Eli brought up the case, how he once told him, "Sometimes people disappear because they want to." Eli never forgot that line, because it didn't sound like hope, it sounded like instruction. In late 2025, 5.5 years after Lena vanished, David Hart suffered a mild stroke. He survived, but recovery was slow. Eli, now 24, moved back temporarily to help manage the house. It was the first time he had lived under the same roof as his father since the disappearance, and old tension returned instantly. They barely spoke, meals were silent, every hallway felt like a crime scene memory. One rainy afternoon in January 2026, Eli went into the attic looking for old tax files. Instead, he found a sealed plastic storage bin tucked behind insulation rolls. No label, no reason to be there. Inside were old documents, utility bills, and a faded manila envelope. On the front, in his father's handwriting, were 3 words, "Do not open." Eli opened it. Inside were printed photos. Not family photos, not work documents. Photos of Lena, taken from a distance, outside her apartment, near the coffee shop, crossing a parking lot, standing at a gas station. Different clothes, different days. At least 8 photos. Every single one looked candid, secret, surveillance. Eli's hands started shaking. Beneath the photos was something worse. A folded piece of paper, a private investigator invoice, dated June 2020, 1 month before Lena vanished. The service description read, "Subject monitoring and movement confirmation. Subject L. Hart. Lena." His own father had hired someone to watch his sister before she disappeared. That was the moment Eli knew 2 things. First, his father had lied for years. Second, the case had never been what anyone thought. Eli didn't go to police immediately. He needed more. He had lived in uncertainty too long to walk in with only suspicion. So he began quietly searching. Drawers, old email folders, storage boxes, his father's desk. He found receipts, burner phone recharge cards.
A second prepaid phone, hidden in a tool cabinet. And then, the real bombshell. A letter, unsigned but clearly written by Lena. It had been folded and refolded so many times the creases were almost torn through. The first line read, "If anything happens to me, it's because Dad found out." Eli couldn't breathe. He sat on the garage floor and read the rest. In the letter, Lena wrote that she had discovered something connected to their father, something involving money, fake identities, and women who were promised jobs. She never fully explained it, as if she was afraid to write too much, but one line stood out. "I think he's been helping someone move girls through fake work offers. I didn't believe it at first, then I saw the messages." The words hit like ice water. This wasn't family drama. This wasn't a stalker romance gone wrong. This was something darker, something organized. Lena had found evidence, And according to the letter, she had confronted David. She wrote, "He begged me not to go to the police. Then he got angry. Then he said I was ruining everything." The final lines were the most terrifying. "If I disappear, Eli must never trust the version of the story Dad tells." For 6 years, he had done exactly that. In February 2026, Eli walked into the Austin Police Department carrying the surveillance photos, the investigator invoice, the prepaid phone, and Lena's letter. He requested to speak with the cold case unit. At first, detectives were cautious. Families in long missing cases often arrive with theories built on grief, but this was different. This was evidence, documented, time-stamped, specific. When investigators reopened the file and reviewed the original records, they noticed something that should have been flagged years earlier.
David Hart had given an early statement claiming he had not seen or spoken to Lena for nearly 2 weeks before she disappeared. But phone data recovered in the original file showed a brief incoming call from a secondary number linked to a prepaid device, a number investigators had never fully traced at the time. That number matched activity associated with the prepaid phone Eli found in the garage. Then they traced the private investigator, retired, living in another county. When questioned, the man admitted David had hired him to keep an eye on Lena. Why? According to David, he believed she had fallen in with dangerous people. But then the investigator said something chilling. David had abruptly canceled the surveillance 2 days before Lena vanished, and he had paid cash. When asked if David ever mentioned why, the investigator answered. He said she'd figured something out, and it would be handled privately. That one sentence detonated the entire case. And when police publicly confirmed the case had been reopened based on significant new evidence provided by a family member, the city paid attention again. But nobody expected what happened next, because David Hart disappeared. 2 days after detectives attempted to formally re-interview him, David Hart was gone. His phone was left at home. His car was found abandoned near a bus station outside Austin. No note, no obvious destination. For a second time, a member of the Hart family had vanished. Only this time, people knew exactly what it meant. You don't run when you're innocent. A statewide alert went out. Media coverage exploded. The old missing person case was now front-page material again. Social media latched onto one question: did the father kill his own daughter? But investigators weren't ready to say that, because the deeper they looked,
the more complicated it became. Financial records tied David to several shell transactions over 2019 and 2020. Small deposits, cash withdrawals, unusual transfers to 2 names investigators later determined were aliases. Those aliases were connected to a defunct staffing business that advertised out-of-state hospitality jobs for young women. It had no legitimate payroll, no office that stayed open, no clear management structure. And 3 women linked to that operation had previously reported suspicious recruitment practices, though none of those complaints had resulted in charges. Suddenly, Lena's letter looked less like paranoia and more like the first witness statement in a hidden criminal network. The working theory began to shift. Investigators now believed Lena may not have stepped outside to confront a random stalker. She may have stepped outside because she recognized the car. And if she recognized the car, she may have known who was inside. That explained why there was no scream, no obvious struggle, no frantic 911 call. If someone she knew, or someone connected to her father, was waiting outside, she may have approached willingly, at least at first. Further review of deleted cloud data from an old synced device uncovered fragments of messages Lena had never sent. Drafts, notes, screenshots partially recovered. One message appeared to reference a meeting. "If he comes again tonight, I'm recording everything.
I'm not scared of him anymore." And then one final fragment. "If Dad is involved, I swear It ended there. Unfinished. Forever unfinished. The theory now was chillingly clear. Lena had discovered her father was entangled in something criminal. She gathered evidence. Someone realized she knew too much.
A car waited outside. She went out to confront it, and she never came back. As the case exploded nationally, Eli gave his first public interview. Millions watched. He sat in a plain chair, hands trembling, eyes red from sleepless nights, and he said the words that broke people. I heard him. 6 years ago, I heard my father say she wasn't supposed to leave that night. I heard it, and I told myself grief was making me imagine things. If I had spoken then, maybe my sister would have been found sooner. The internet was ruthless. Some called him brave. Some called him foolish. Some blamed him. But anyone who had lived through trauma understood. Sometimes the mind protects itself by rejecting what it cannot bear. The possibility that your own father might be involved in your sister's disappearance, that is not a thought most people can survive easily. Eli's confession became the emotional center of the story. Not because it solved the case completely, but because it showed the unbearable weight of silence. The sentence he buried for 6 years was the same sentence that finally cracked the case open.
3 weeks after David disappeared, authorities found him in a remote motel outside New Mexico. Alive, disheveled, paranoid. He was taken into custody. At first, he denied everything. Then he asked for a lawyer. Then, after hours of questioning and mounting evidence, he made a partial admission. Not a full confession, but enough. According to investigators, David claimed he had not intended for Lena to die. He said he had only wanted to scare her and stop her from going public. He admitted arranging for a man he knew through the fake staffing operation to talk to her. He admitted he knew the gray sedan. He admitted he knew she went outside that night. But he insisted. Things got out of hand. That phrase, things got out of hand, would enrage the public. Because for Lena, life didn't get out of hand. It was taken. Based on his statements and follow-up searches, investigators were led to a remote piece of land once connected to an associate in the staffing scheme. There, after days of excavation, they found human remains. Months later, forensic testing confirmed the truth the Hart family had feared for 6 years. It was Lena. After 6 years of posters, searches, prayers, and pain, she had finally come home. Most people thought the shocking part of the story was that her father was involved. But that wasn't the deepest shock. The deepest shock was this. Lena had almost exposed something much bigger than her own murder. Her disappearance wasn't just a family tragedy. It was collateral damage in a hidden exploitation network operating behind fake job offers. After David's arrest, 2 other men tied to the recruitment scheme were investigated. Records were reopened. Past complaints were revisited. Families of other young women came forward. Some cases had never been connected before. Lena, even in death, became the reason authorities finally looked harder. She had tried to tell the truth. She had tried to protect people. And the brother who thought he had failed her was the one who finally finished what she started.
For 6 years, people asked the wrong question. They asked, where did Lena go? But the real question was, who was afraid of what Lena knew? A young woman stepped into the night, thinking she was confronting danger. What she didn't know was that danger had already entered her home. Not as a stranger, not as a shadow in the parking lot, but as someone she trusted. Someone who called himself family. And yet, even after her voice was silenced, her truth survived. In a letter, in old photos, in a sentence her brother could never forget. Sometimes justice doesn't come quickly. Sometimes it takes years. Sometimes it arrives broken, late, and painful. But when it comes, it reminds the world that truth can be parried, but not forever. And sometimes, the person who solves the mystery is the one who's been carrying the answer all along. If this story moved you, don't scroll away. Like this video, subscribe, and comment below. Did Eli wait too long to speak? Or was he just a victim too?